you are CHERYL PANGBURN. Your mother was Marilyn Bixler. She died in 2017 from what you were told at the time was natural causes. In 2019, you discovered that the medical examiner in Collin County had reclassified her death as undetermined, and that police were looking at her death, suspecting that she was among dozens of victims who may have been murdered by the alleged serial killer Billy Chemirmir. And I say suspected because that's how they phrase it. But if I recall in your mind, there's no doubt.
There's no doubt. That is correct. I've had several years to look into it. And, our initial hope was, please don't let this be true, and let's find reasons for it, to believe that it's not true. And the more we found out, the more confirming it was. And then to sit through the last trial was even more so. So if there was ever a doubt after the last trial, there's no question that that's what happened to her.
Yeah. So he's going on trial starting Monday for the murder of Lucy Harris, who's believed to be his last victim. But this will be the second time he stands trial, because the first trial last year ended in a mistrial by hung jury, because according to notes that we heard from the jury as a whole, there was one juror who refused to deliberate. But if I remember, you were there. Were you there every day of the initial trial?
Every day. That is correct. And as we understood the strategy of how the trial was put together, and that when you have a case like this, how it's imperative to take the circumstantial evidence and physically brick by brick build a house until you've got a structure that just is unquestionable. And so to sit through that last trial and to see that happen throughout the week, we just were confident that, this first trial would end in a verdict, and we'd be sitting through a second trial, which we anticipated it, but it would be for another case. And so, we were stunned that it ended the way it did, and that as we go into trial number 2, we call it 2.0, because it's, the same retrial of the same case that happened back in November.
Yeah. What was that like? What was it like to sit through the trial? You guys were there was a group of you guys, of family members of various victims, and you were sitting together. You had a room. What was it like in that room?
I think going into that week, prior to that, we had never seen anything other than a picture of Billy Chemirmir. There was not a life behind that picture. And so that first trial was the first time we'd ever seen the man in person, the first time we'd ever heard him speak, the first time we'd ever heard him kind of start to weave his web of lies. And, so that was very insightful. It's the first time that we were exposed to his tactics and to the ways that he went about accomplishing this over and over again for so long, for so many victims. And so we sat in that room, and it was silent. We were riveted. We were glued to the TV, and I don't think we left the room until there was a break. I don't think anybody did. I think we were all just very glued to the streaming. And it's such a unique group of people that get together. Not everyone has the benefit, when you go through something like this, of having such a large group of support system. And so we just sit in the room, and different people react to different things. And, you lift people up, you pray for people, you encourage people, they encourage you. And so it's just a unusual community, but it's their family, and we all experience it together. We can't imagine not having that.
What were moments in the trial that stood out to you?
I think the interrogation room was one thing that stood out to us. Definitely the video of him in the Walmart situation.
The
I think,
interrogation you talk about, are you talking about him laughing at times?
yes, yes, yes. The casualness with which he just carried himself.
Mhm.
This is
And
like,
he denied murdering anyone, but at the same time, he reacted strangely for someone even being accused of
yes,
murdering someone.
it was, and that's really our first exposure to seeing him interact with anyone, was with him having that demeanor. And this is like one of the most traumatic things that you could go through as a family member, and when it's your mom, and then to just have that cavalier attitude, it was just disturbing.
Mhm.
But another thing that stood out in the trial, and I know that so many of us, when the gold and diamond exchange gentleman was there and they started putting up on the screen his transactions, and that's the first any of us had ever seen any of those documents. And so we were all getting cell phone cameras out and snapping pictures as they would scroll through those screens. And I snapped a picture and it was like, that's the date of my mom's murder. That's the date of her best friend's murder. That's the date of the attempted murder. And we could all go and correlate. This is when the murder happened. And it was either that day or the following day that he had shown up at this pawn shop. And so,
And those records show that he was selling jewelry, and he is accused of stealing jewelry from his victim. So that is supposedly, that goes to sort of the alleged motive here, that he was murdering mostly women to steal their jewelry and then to resell them at places like the Diamond Exchange and get money. And the other thing that kind of stood out to me about that was really, you see sort of like a dollar amount associated with the life of your mother.
Yeah, and a lot of us could correlate that to the items that we knew were missing. And a lot of us were like, he murdered my mom and got $600 for it, So it just a lot of emotion goes into seeing that. That was huge for a lot of us.
So how do you think the retrial will be for you? I know it's hard to predict what kind of emotions are going to come up, but
Right.
You're not going to be hit. I presume you're likely not going to be hit with as many surprises as you were in the initial trial.
Right.
Are you also planning to be there every single day?
Planning to be there every single day, hoping to be in the courtroom as much as we can, to the extent,
because this time you will be allowed in. It will be open to the public.
Correct, open to the public. And so, we talk about the fact that we'd all like to be in there, but and as you can imagine, with the community of family, we talk all the time, and especially we're in communication all the time. So we have our strategies in place. If we can't all be in the courtroom, then we will take turns, we'll shift. Like we've worked all of that out so that everyone has an opportunity to be in the courtroom. I think it's super important for a jury to see the extent to which this has affected so many people. It's not just his victims, but it's such a wide spread of the families of the victims that are just countless. And, I think at max, there were maybe 20, 22 people at the trial the last time, but that's just a fraction of the total number of people. That doesn't represent all of the families. So I think that's very important for a jury. I think it just injects humanity back into the process to see the extent of, the damage that was done. I also feel like we've been exposed to CHEMIRMIR in doses. The last trial, it was us seeing his mannerisms and him speak for the first time. But I know one of the things that we always wondered last trial was, what is he whispering to his attorneys? What is he writing down on his envelope? What is he thinking? What is in his mind as he's going through the trial? And because he has since then reached out to a podcaster and to a news outlet and has, given interviews, we now know what's in his mind, which is that he has convinced himself that he is totally innocent of all of these charges, and that he will never be found guilty, and that he will never see the inside of a prison. And so, we know that that was his mindset at the last trial. And so to the extent that I wish that he would see us as family members and realize and have some feeling of remorse for what he's done, with that mindset, I don't know he has the mental capacity to do that, which is kind of disappointing as well. You would hope that he would feel something for
Right.
what he's and I just, maybe it'll be telling to see him in person, but that would be my hope, is that by being in the courtroom that it would stir something in him as well.
Right. You won't be, you likely won't be reacting to certain evidence as you did when you saw it for the first time. And you'll also likely be asked to keep your reactions subdued. Is that something that you think you guys will be able to do?
I 100% know that we'll be able to manage that as far as the public eye or anybody else in the courtroom would see. That's not to say that we won't be sitting there squeezing each other's legs, you know, as tight as we can and that kind of stuff. So we'll have our own communication where we're reacting, but we can definitely, we would never do anything that would jeopardize us finally getting to be inside that courtroom.
Yeah. And how are you preparing personally for the week to come?
You know, it's funny. I personally came to Atlanta to help my daughter and son-in-law move and to spend time with my kids as my distraction. I know others are taking trips. A lot of people are spending time with grandkids. So we're trying to distract ourselves as much that way. But at the same time, our group message is hot and heavy from morning till night, just talking about different things. So, you know, it's just encouraging to see how some of us will say, I'm, you know, so super anxious about it. And then someone will give a word of encouragement and we're all like, okay, you know, let's bring us back down. So it's just an ebb and flow of emotions, but you know, it's the support system that we've grown accustomed to over the years. And so that will get us through the next week, that in our faith and a lot of prayer for jurors and judges and lawyers and CHEMIRMIR himself. So
Do you resent having to go through this again?
I don't resent wouldn't be the word that I would use. I have been prepared for it because we've always thought that we were going to go through 2 trials. I'm sad that it ended the way that it did and that we have to go through this trial again. I really feel for Lucy Harris's family, especially, you know, I think of her son-in-law. I think of him, like when we're sitting in that courtroom as family members and he has to come in and testify again. I hope that he looks out and realizes that we're sitting there to support him. You know, I mean, his mom's trial represents all of our moms. And so, so we're there in support. We're there no matter who is on trial, we would be there in support of that family because that is representative of our mom's justice. So I don't resent it. I'm sad that it's a repeat of trial number 1. I'm anxious to get it over with so that we can move on to trial number 2. And then Collin, you know, I'm a Collin County family. So we're anxious to move on and to see, you know, the Collin County side of things. So that this just prolongs all of that.
And then I just wanted to end by asking you about your mom, because I know he's the one on trial and there will be a lot of focus on him next week because of that. But I just personally want to try to keep the people affected in the forefront. So what do you want people to know about your mom, and what are the kind of things that, I mean, I'm sure that she is at the forefront of your thoughts as you prepare to go into trial, and she will be next week as you are in trial. If there's anything about her that keeps coming to mind as you prepare for this.
Yeah, the one thing that I know is that she would be proud of what we're doing. We talk about how we think our moms would have been the best of friends had they all known each other. We think that they all were spunky, vibrant, fun women. And I think that's a lot of the reason that he was able to kind of stalk them, is because they were in and out so much because they were just so lively. So I think I think I draw a lot of the ability to go through this over and over again from her. And I think that she would want us to be doing this, and she would want us to make sure that we took the steps that were necessary to keep this from happening again, especially to the people that lived in her complex and her friends. And had she been a survivor and that had happened in her building, she would have been the first one on the doorstep saying, what are we going to do to make this right? And so, you know, we're all being the voices of our moms who aren't around to take those steps. And so that's kind of what I channel in getting through this part of it. But you know, we just miss her every single day. And I was with my kids last night, and we just laugh and talk and tell Meemaw stories all the time. And she was just a joy. Gone too soon, you know.
You shared videos with me, and she just seems so funny. And you know, she was, what was it? Within a year of her death, she was taking a tequila shot in Mexico and telling, you know, stories about getting hit on the bus. And she was clearly a big character. And I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to meet her.
Yeah. Yes, I am too. You would have enjoyed her, as everyone did.